If you are tired of feeling like, what are my next steps? Or I have so much to offer, but I just don't know how to communicate my value to the world and to the people that can help me get to the next level. I don't know what to do, but I know there's more to life than this. If that is where you are right now, then you have come to the right episode. Welcome to the Luxury State of Mind podcast, where we focus on intentionally crafting a life that feels tailor-made for you. On each episode, you'll learn how to create luxury in your everyday life and celebrate the uniqueness that is you. I'm your host, Dammy Oshodi, and I'm excited to help you develop a luxury state of mind. Welcome to the Luxury State of Mind podcast, and I'm your host, Dammy Oshodi, and I'm actually having a conversation with one of my favorite people online, and her name is Dammy Saint Claire. So no, I did not repeat my name twice. I have another Dammy on the podcast, and we spell it the same way. She is amazing. You are going to enjoy this episode. We're going to answer all of those things that I mentioned at the beginning, but I want to introduce Dammy to you just so you get a gist of who she is. So Dammy Saint Claire is a leading trichologist and Black hair care specialist. She's dedicated to helping Black women understand and overcome hair loss, scalp issues, and the impact of hair care practices on overall health. With a science-backed yet holistic approach, she empowers women through education, research, and innovative hair health solutions. As one of the founders of Saint Claire's Hair and Strand Salvation, she has transformed the hair journeys of countless women through the signature SMP framework, and that is spiritual, scientific, mindset and mentality, physical and practical, a unique methodology that bridges hair science, wellness, and personal empowerment. Through her membership programs, master classes, and one-on-one coaching, she provides actionable solutions for healthier hair and long-term growth. Her expertise has made her a sought-after voice in the industry, collaborating with brands and educating stylists on the hidden truths of Black hair care. And beyond her work, beyond all the amazing things that she does, she is a devoted wife, mother of 3, speaker, charity founder, and balancing family life with her mission to help empower women and reclaim their confidence and well-being through healthy hair. And one of the things that Dammy believes in is hair impacts you spiritually, mentally, and physically. When your hair thrives, so do you. Phenomenal hair, phenomenal you. Okay. So, she is an original. Even in her framework, the way she addresses hair, especially for Black women, everything about this is so unique. And you're going to get that sense when you hear this interview. We're going to be talking about her journey to getting to where she is now, because it did not always look like this. So how do you go from having an idea to bringing something to fruition? How do you communicate your value to people when you feel that you're multifaceted? And how do you get more secure in who you are, your identity? And why is personal development so important for you to move on to the next step? You need to listen to this episode. It's going to bless you so much. I'm super excited to introduce Dammy to you. And welcome, Dammy, to the Luxury State of Mind podcast.
Hi, Dammy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on and gracing us with your presence. As we were discussing before I hit record, I am super excited to have you on, for you to share your wisdom with the listeners and anybody who's able to get in contact with this podcast. So it's super exciting to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited also because I have no idea what is going to come from this conversation, but I know it's going to be fire.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and just share who is Dammy in your own words, and even to share your story as well, just so we get a sense of who you are?
Yes, so my name is Dammy Saint Claire, and I am many things to many people, which is a blessing. So I'm a wife, I am a mother of three, I am a trichologist, which is a hair and scalp specialist. I'm a business owner, I'm a charity founder, I'm an author, children's church teacher, many hats, and I believe that loads of us wear many hats. But for me, the most important thing, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing because all of the things I mentioned are important, but it's important that I know why there is breath in my lungs. And so ultimately, I am Dammy, and I'm everything right now that God has destined for me to be. And I'm on a journey of actualizing that. So I'm on a journey of knowing that and having it be my physical reality. And it's a wonderful journey.
And I love that because even just looking at you, the different interviews and I've been able to see and just the different content you put out there, you are somebody who seems so grounded in who you are and is determined to show the fullness of how God has made you in everything that you do. One of the things that caught my eye is your uniqueness, like your own spin on things, the way that you talk, your business ventures, and just, yeah, everything that you're doing. So I can definitely see that you're in alignment with what it is that you believe God has called you to do.
That's amazing. And thank you for that, because sometimes I feel like a hot mess. Like I have so many things going through my mind. I feel like I'm trying to do so many different things at one time. And I ask myself, am I actually doing anything? Like, am I making progress with my hands in so many different pots? And sometimes I don't really have an understanding of how I am being perceived. And in my mind, I feel like I must look like a hot mess. But it's reassuring to hear that when you look at me, and I think it's something that I need to also, a narrative that I need to shift and change in my mind, that people don't see a hot mess, but actually they see, what you've just said. They see, ultimately pray that they see what God sees. And so I need to get into alignment and also see that, and not see that I'm going to get there, but that I am that now.
So I would love for you to share a bit about your story because you mentioned a lot of things. You are a trichologist, which is something I'd never heard of until actually I found your channel. Did not know what a trichologist is, so if you can speak to that, that would be great. And then also you own a hair care company, you do interviews, you do all these things, but I know that there's a story. And you also have a nonprofit. So I know that there's a story of how you've gotten there. So just share with us where you were before, and then how did you become this person who is able to, again, do so many things with your gifts in such a unique way?
So where I was before, and I guess the question would be before what? So I'm going to probably I'll start from university, or I'll even just start from, hair, because hair is something I say is in my bloodline. So my mum is a hairdresser. She had a salon which she named after me. She named after my English name, which is Claire. So the salon was called Saint Claire's Hair. And so I've just grown up and I've always had this passion for hair. I've always been around hair. I never really knew what I wanted to do growing up. Just knew I wanted to do something creative. And so when I went into uni, because I didn't really have, a clear idea of where I wanted to go, I just picked something broad. So I just picked business management. I just felt like that would allow me to explore many different areas once I have that degree. And so went through uni, came out of uni, and when it came time to look for a graduate job, I had this massive limiting belief that if I applied for a job, I would never get it. I would never get it because, one, I wouldn't be able to communicate my value to an employer. I didn't even really understand or know my value. And I just had this idea that I didn't know how to articulate myself well. And so all of those limiting beliefs came from instances, situations that had happened in the past, and nothing even major, but it's small things that have happened in the past that began to shape my beliefs about myself.
So I actually want to invite you to have a tool that I created, right, when it comes to time management. And this tool is my workbook called Time on Your Terms. And it's just that simple. It is helping you learn to create more time and use your time on your own terms. It's a very simple, powerful workbook that's not just going to give productivity tips and tricks. Really, the purpose of this workbook is to help change your mind so the transformation, the change that you're looking for is long lasting. I really focus more in this workbook on using your personal values to help manage your time versus you, again, just making a to-do list, having productivity hacks. Because like I've said before, there are so many videos on YouTube. There's so much information about productivity. If that was all that was necessary, you would have been able to manage your time better at this point, right? You've probably watched all the It Girl videos, that girl, this girl, all them things. You've probably watched all of that, but it's just not working. So now it's more of a transformational shift in the mind, getting in the mindset of how can I actually manage my time that's a best fit for me, that is sustainable for me. So I invite you to go on the website, luxurystateofmind.com. You will find the Time on Your Terms on the website. Again, Time on Your Terms, once you purchase, it will be sent automatically to your email, or you can actually click the link in the description of this podcast and I'll have the product there so you can easily purchase it. It's just a simple, powerful tool that's really going to help you get on the way to managing your time better.
So just to give you an example, I remember having a conversation. I was 19 years old, 19, 20, on holiday with my friends in Miami. We were talking to a group of people, just a very superficial conversation about a Star Wars film that had just come out. And then midway through the conversation, one of the guys goes to me, "Dammy, why do you talk like a bimbo when you're not one?" And I remember just being taken aback because, like, how do you respond to that? You've just told me that I sound like a bimbo. And what that conversation did is it made me say to myself that when I'm talking and I'm just being myself, just sounding like Dammy, I must sound unintelligent. I must sound like a bimbo. And so that was one of the things that created a limiting belief about my ability to articulate myself. And so what would happen is that whenever I would find myself in a situation where I felt like I needed to sound articulate or eloquent, I would then start overthinking and trying to use big words to make me sound like I am somebody who is intelligent and not a bimbo. But in the process of overthinking, I would begin to stumble on my words, which then reinforced that limiting belief that I don't know how to articulate myself. And mind you, anybody who knew me, I'm loud. You know, I'm eccentric, I'm crazy, or Dammy's crazy, or whatever. And people often equate being loud to being confident. And in some areas, I was confident, but then in others, I was not. And so I had these limiting beliefs that were holding me back from doing things. And I just found myself in a space whereby I just was floating, coasting. You know, so I had a 9-to-5 job after I left uni, and I wasn't really trying to do anything to get myself out there, to elevate myself. But then I did stumble on hair. And so at that time, this was like 2013, and that's when virgin hair like became the in thing. So we had all been buying our hair from the beauty shop, the beauty supply store, packet hair that would only last maybe a couple of weeks. And at this time, virgin hair came into the mix. It was raw human hair. It could last for X amount of time. It was super expensive, nothing like anything we were used to. And I remember me and my friend went to go and look at some, and when the guy told us the price, I was like, "Excuse you?" I'm used to paying like £10 for a packet of hair. And you're telling me to pay 210. That's a 10x. Like, is that 10x? That's 20x. Like, what's going on? And so I remember I started doing my own research, trying to find my own supplier so that I could cut out the middleman. And lo and behold, the very first supplier that I decided to try after doing extensive research was the same company that I, still use today, 10 years later. And their hair was absolutely amazing. And so that's how I started, or that's how I entered the hair game. So I started selling hair bundles. And because my mum had the salon that she'd already named after me, it only made sense to make this like an extension of the hair salon. This is now the products line, Saint Claire's Hair Extensions. And that's how I got into hair. So initially it was selling hair bundles, which then became selling wigs. And then when I had my daughter, I then had this, and I think a lot of mums can relate to this, but you have this desire to have your daughter appreciate her natural hair. And it's like, how can she appreciate it if she never sees you wearing yours? So then I went through this phase where I wanted to express myself and wear my natural hair. So I cut off all my relaxed hair and then started researching best products to use. And then there was nothing on the market that I felt was really worked well and was effective. And then that's when I created my own natural hair care product line as well. So I had the wigs, the extensions, and then I also had the products so that you can take care of your hair under the wigs and under the extensions. And it was at that time that I stumbled into trichology. I had never heard about it before either. Me and a friend were talking and she mentioned it. And the moment I heard it, I was like, I need to do this because I want to be somebody who is providing products, but I'm speaking from a place of knowledge and speaking from a place of expertise. And that was what made me go into trichology, not necessarily to have one-to-one consultations with people, but just so that I knew what I was talking about and I could validate my products and how they work, what they can do and what they can't do. But God has a funny way of doing things, because at the moment now, as of last year, I stopped selling wigs, stopped selling hair products, and I transitioned, and now I work with women one-to-one using my trichology qualification to help them navigate hair loss and hair growth.
Thank you for taking us on that journey. I can see, the different steps that led you to this point, and I guess the different reformations, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but just the different ways that you've blossomed and evolved over time. And what was interesting to me is at the beginning, your thought process and feeling like you didn't have value to offer. And I know for myself, for example, and I'm sure maybe for different women who are listening, that feeling, especially if you didn't have a plan of this is what I'm going to become in the future, right? You kind of are good at many things, but there's not some things specific that from the time you were born, this is what I want to do. And I feel like that can become really challenging and make you feel like, well, I guess I don't have anything to value because I don't know what it is that I'm good at. I don't know what it is to offer people because I can do anything. So that really resonates with me. And I know that you mentioned also that somebody had said something to you like, Dammy, why do you sound like a bimbo when you're not one? That's wild. I wanted to be like, that's a hater while you were talking. But how did you overcome those feelings of being in a way multifaceted and not feel like you added value to now becoming somebody who you just went into a store one day and was like, I need to figure this out. How did you get from that point to then starting that hair care business?
So I'd say the things that, just like you said, I felt like I didn't know exactly how to package my value and sell it to, an employer, for instance, because I know what I was good at, but I couldn't see how it added value in society. So for me, I love acting. I love entrepreneurship. But at the time, I didn't really understand how are these things going to help me in my life. The idea of what you do as you mature was so conventional. You do your academics and then you go to uni and then there was no room for, okay, so where does acting come into this, unless I go down the road of actually pursuing becoming an actress. But nobody was really ever in my corner pushing me to like do so. So it was just like, okay, so now I've decided to take this conventional path. How does the value that I believe I have, where does it come into play here? I think the journey of really understanding how my passion for hair does have value, it has been a very long journey that has taken place in stages. And so how I got there, first of all, was through mentorship. So things changed for me when I got mentorship. So initially I got a business mentor. So when I started St. Clair's, again, it was just based off of passion. So there wasn't really any fear about, oh, can I do this? Can I make this a successful business? There weren't any limiting beliefs in the equation because I wasn't doing it to try and make something out of it. So there was no fear of like failure or anything like that. I was just doing it because I love hair. I found a good supplier and I like other women to look good. I like their hair to look good. So why not sell it? It only makes sense. There was no pressure. So I just, again, stumbled into selling the hair bundles and it just made sense. And when things changed was when I wanted to make it into something. I wanted it to be a successful business. I wanted to be able to live the life that I desired off of this business that I've built. And I realized that I couldn't do it by myself, that I needed guidance. I needed mentorship. I'd done what I knew to do, which at the time was creating videos on YouTube and making posts on social media, but I knew that I needed to do more if I wanted to be, you know, like this global organization. And so I got a business mentor, and I remember in one of our sessions, you know, it's a blessing in disguise because the motive was to grow my business, but really it was personal development that came out from having a business mentor, because we had one session and we're just looking over the things that I had achieved within my business in the last year. And at one point, my business mentor goes to me, "This is amazing. I hope you're proud of yourself." And then I remember just kind of like smiling and just, you know, I wanted her to move on because I didn't feel proud of what I had achieved. I felt like at this stage in life, how many years I've been in the business, that I feel like, you know, I should have achieved much more. And so she sent something and then she repeated it again. And it was almost like she wouldn't let it go. I just wanted her to just move the conversation on. But she was like, "I hope you're proud of yourself," or waiting for me to say, "Yes, I am proud of myself." Instead of me saying that, I actually ended up bursting into tears. And so she was just like, "Why are you crying?" And I was just like, "I don't feel proud. I don't feel like I can say that and mean it." And she was just like, "Why?" And then I explained, "I just feel like I should have achieved so much more." And she was like, "Look, you've achieved all of this and you didn't even know X, Y, and Z, because we've been working together for a couple of weeks by that time. And so there were a lot of things we established that I didn't know, some foundational things that I hadn't actually laid down." And she was like, "So even without knowing this and without laying certain foundations down, this is what you've achieved." She was like, "You better be proud of yourself. Imagine what you're going to do now that you know what you know." And her simply reframing it in that way, it made me see things so differently. And I remember after that session, I sat with myself and I decided I really need to reevaluate how I am looking at my life, how I look at myself, how I look at what I'm doing. And that day, something happened, you know, something broke, something changed in me. And that was just the beginning of the journey. And so after having that mentor, I realized I needed a life mentor. And at the time, I didn't know that was what you call a life coach. But then I found one. And again, getting the life coach, they were able to make me realize things and help me see things in myself that I didn't see. You know, one of the things they made me do was, what would you be doing if you had all of your needs were met, basically, and you were making all this money and, you know, that finances wasn't a worry? What would you be doing? And then I mentioned some of the things that I would love to do. And they said to me, "Why can't you do it now?" And I said, "Oh, I haven't made it yet." You know, I'm not, you know, successful like that yet. And then they were like, "Who told you that the people you want to help don't need what you already have and what you already know. And then again, it was just this moment of, no, you need to start reevaluating and reframing and looking differently at how you've been seeing yourself. And it got to the point whereby eventually I just had to go back to God, and I needed to see myself with his eyes. I needed him to tell me about who I was, because clearly who I believed Dammy was all these years of my life, bearing in mind by this time I was in my 30s, but who I understood Dammy to be for the last 30 years was not who God had made me to be. And so I had to spend time with him and then just relearn, not even relearn, but actually learn who God says I am, who he purposed for me to be. Jeremiah 29:11, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. I needed to know that version of me, the Dammy that he knows. And it's on that journey that something was unleashed. Just this Dammy that you see today is the Dammy that you see now, because I learned how God sees me, and I'm still learning.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that portion of your story. I got a lot of things from that, a lot of great things. The first thing that really stuck out to me is you decided at some point, well, first of all, you moved with passion, which I love. Like, you started first with, I just love hair. I love, helping women look beautiful. I just want to try it. Like, and I like that you mentioned there was no limiting like beliefs at that point, because there was no high like expectation, if you will. You were just moving and out of your passion, out of your desire. And I just want to make a note here, like, for somebody that there's so many things like we have passions and desires for, but out of fear, or we're not sure how it's going to work out, we don't even give it the opportunity to breathe, give the opportunity to give it room. So this is just encouraging to hear that, okay, you can just move out of your passion. You don't have to have, this is where it's going to end up. But the second thing is you put new information into your mind, and how you did that was through mentorship. So you had at one point, you knew like, okay, I'm not able to get past this point with what I know right now. I need somebody to walk with me. And you allowed somebody to speak into your life, give you new perspective. There's this phrase that I say to literally only one person, but I'm going to say it here. Perspective pays. Like, a frame in mindset or a shift in the mind and helping you to see new opportunities that are in front of you can change everything. So I love that you had, and you were open to give yourself to somebody who could speak into your life, and also to help you see, like, you said that you were working for your business, but personal development was something that you wanted to, or that you realized that you needed to grow into. And I want to ask you, why is personal development something that people should do? Because what I have thought myself and what I see is like, we just need to do, but I've come across this like new perspective of be do have, which is like you become more, so you do more, so you have more. So how does personal development help you become more, and what does that actually look like?
Oh, Dammy, where do I start? How do I gather all my thoughts together and make a coherent sentence? Personal development is everything, because who you are as a person, personally, that flows out of you, and it literally shapes your life. And so I guess I would liken personal development to seed in the ground. Seed time, harvest time. It's a God principle. It applies to every area of our lives. And when you think about personal development, is the work that is done that nobody really sees. It's the work that's done underground. And so if you don't have any roots, there's so many layers to this. There's so many layers. Where do I start from so that I'm making sense? So firstly, you need to have worked on yourself personally, because if you don't have any roots, if you don't have a foundation, then however you decide to show up in the world, that can easily get knocked down. It could be knocked down by whatever. It could get knocked down by somebody calling you a bimbo in the middle of a sentence. It can get knocked down by people speaking their beliefs or their perceptions over you. So you need to have foundation, first of all. And then it's about the type of, seed that you have sown. So as I was saying, you need to have foundation. And then as well as that, you need to be intentional about the seeds that you are sowing. So your personal development, depending on what seeds you're sowing into your heart, into your mind, what you believe about yourself, what you're saying to yourself, if you don't have any control over that, and the seeds that are being sown are seeds other people are sowing, things other people say about you, as opposed to what you say about yourself, which should ultimately be inspired and influenced by what God says about you. If that is not what is happening, then like I said, when that seed begins to sprout, whatever emerges from the ground is a result of the work that has taken place underground. And so personal development is extremely important. There is nothing that we see here physically that didn't start in the spiritual realm. And so if you are not taking the time to work on yourself personally, which are things of a spiritual nature, when you work on personal development, this is about the thoughts you have towards yourself. Thoughts are not a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing. So your personal development is what is taking place in the spiritual. And if you understand that nothing we see here happens without it first happening in the spiritual, then you will make personal development your absolute priority. Your absolute priority if you care about the life that you're living on earth and you want to see the life that the abundant life that God has for you actualize in this earth, then you have to focus on personal development.
That has to be the best and clearest way I've ever heard of describing personal development. So no, you didn't ramble at all. Like everything that you said, everything that you said had weight to it. And it makes sense. It's the foundation of who you are. You're helping to build the foundation. You're sowing the seeds to become the person in which you were called to be, and affirming what it is that the Lord had already said about you. I love that.
When you spend time knowing what He said about you, and then you believe it, you be it. And then because you be it and you believe it, you do the things that version of you would do. And when you do the things that the version of you that God sees would do, then you have the things that version of you is supposed to have. So the be, do, have is a very real thing, a very real thing. But a lot of people are trying to do and have without being, and you can go on an Israelite journey doing things that way. God talks about the renewing of your mind, not being conformed to this world. And oh gosh, there's so many things. But ultimately, God desires to see a transformation within you. When God is showing you what He desires for you, He doesn't show your natural eye. It's not like Waze or maps where you're like, God, show me what to do. I need direction. It's not like putting a destination in Waze and then He shows you with your natural eye where to go. The way that God shows you how to walk in the path that He's laid out for you is He does it through a transformation of your mind, a transformation of how you see yourself. And then when you have that transformation, that is when you now become everything that He has destined for you to be. You become it.
So you were in a place, you were with the coach, and they were like, hey, this is like, aren't you proud of yourself? You said no, or you didn't know how to respond to that. And now you have become more. So what did that process look like for you to know exactly like what God has for you and to believe it?
So I'm still on it right now. Even as of yesterday, the Dammy that I was yesterday isn't the Dammy that you're speaking to right now. This is a new and improved Dammy that has had light shone onto who she is. It's a never-ending journey. But how I became was I trusted. So I trusted who God said I was, I am. I believed it. And again, I was obedient to what I believe he was telling me to do. So I mentioned that I have a non-profit, and in 2022, I would say that was a time where I'd had the business coach, I'd had the life coach, I'd also joined this amazing ministry that made me feel like I had no idea what it meant to be a Christian, because the things that I was learning being in that ministry, I'd never heard them before. And I'd never understood how much power that I have as a believer. And so when it got to the beginning of 2022, that was a period of me, I'd say, learning who God said I am. And so 2022 was the doing. It was not the doing, sorry, it was the being and the doing. And so in 2022, I just surrendered and I said, you know what, God, clearly I've spent the last 30 years thinking that I know what to do, but I don't know what to do when I don't know who I am. And I just said to him, now that you've shown me who I am, what do you want me to do? And he gave me this wild dream about entrepreneurship, young people in Tottenham, which is an area in London, and him, God. And when I had the dream, I didn't understand what it meant. But then after sharing the dream with my life coach and just sitting with it and asking the Holy Spirit, what does this mean? I realized that one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping young people in the area of entrepreneurship, but through the lens of their God-given purpose. So doing business, not with necessarily money as your motivation, but operating in your God-given purpose, using the passions and the skills that he has given you to go into business. And at the time, I was just like, God, this doesn't make sense, because like hair is my thing and I haven't even made it yet. I'm not like L'Oreal or one of these big organizations. So who on earth am I to teach young people entrepreneurship, as if to say I'm in Forbes. I've made the Forbes list. And this is where I had to just trust that I am who he says I am. So therefore, if he said that I can do this, then I need to do it. And so I set about creating this program where I was going to teach young people entrepreneurship through the lens of their God-given purpose. And because this was a God-ordained vision, every single resource that I needed to make this program come to fruition was provided. So I remember I had a dream about one of my friends, and I'm going to summarize this because this story is a 45-minute story in itself, but I had a dream about one of my friends, which led me to call her. I called her, and somehow I ended up sharing with her this dream and this plan I have to teach young people entrepreneurship. I spoke to her about it, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We need to have a dinner with one of our other friends. We had this dinner, and at the end of the night, the two of them turned to me and said, whatever you need to make this program a reality, we are going to help you. And I was like, wow. So like that, I have a team. And so I went to church, and I remember saying to God, okay, we're now in 2022. Maybe we'll have the program ready by 2023. And God was like, nah, you're going to have that program ready by this summer. So what do you mean this summer, God?
Oh my.
Right now, we are in April. What do you mean summer? We're practically in summer. And he was like, I said what I said. The program's going to happen this summer. So I went back, I told my friends, and then we literally began looking for venues. We began speaking about how we're going to find the young people to participate in the program. We approached a stadium in the UK called Tottenham Stadium. It's a really big stadium. And I forgot to mention that at the beginning of 2022, when I asked God, what does he want me to do? I had that dream, but I also had a vision of a big glass building in the middle of Tottenham. And so when we began to look for venues, one of my friends was like, why don't we try and use Tottenham Stadium. It's a big glass building in the middle of Tottenham, just like in your vision. And we just thought, oh my gosh, this must be it. So when we inquired of the venue, they were giving us some crazy prices to use one of their rooms. And we were like, okay, so maybe this isn't it. And then on the day that we were about to look at another venue, Tottenham Stadium called me and they were like, well, actually, we can give you the room that you wanted for the duration of the summer holidays at no cost, so completely free of charge. And we can also include lunch, free lunch. And I was just like, wow, so this is actually happening. And I remember I was in my kitchen that day and I remember I cried after we got the phone call because everything I was doing, it just sounded crazy. Dammy, what, you had a dream and then you asked God, what's your purpose for this year? And you're chasing this crazy dream of teaching young people entrepreneurship. And I remember thinking, am I really hearing from God?
Not a fanatic.
Some kind of like fanatic.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I didn't know. When they said that they've given us the venue, I was like, okay. I literally remember I sat in my kitchen. I said, I'm not going crazy. Like, God is actually speaking to me and he's actually walking with me. He's holding my hand through this. And so, you know, long story short, that summer, we taught 6 children entrepreneurship through the lens of their God-given purpose. We helped them build a business over the course of the 6 weeks. And then for the finale of the program, we got them suits and they pitched their business ideas to a room full of people at Facebook's headquarters, The Apprentice, or in America, they would call it like Shark Tank. So like Shark Tank, we got them to pitch their business ideas. And that finale actually happened on my birthday. And I just say that none of that is coincidence. And it's because it's what I was born to do. And so obviously focusing on this for 2022, I had to put my hair business like on the back seat because I needed to focus on this vision that God had given me. And I also had aspirations that year of doing 6 figures, but how do you do 6 figures when you're not even focusing on your business and you're focusing on a charity? And so once the program finished in August, September came and I began focusing on my business again. And then in September, throughout the year, actually, I'd been doing on average about £5,000 per month. And then in September, after finishing the program, the vision that God had given me, I did £10,000 in September. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is nice. This is double what I usually do. Good. So then October came. And then in October, I did 20,000. And then I was just like, whoa, it's still nice, but it's a bit scary. Like, what is going on here? And then in November, somebody who I had contacted to be a part of the program that I did with the young people, I got them to speak to them about entrepreneurship. In November, they reached out to me and they were like, you know what, I just want to give you £5,000. Don't pay me back. I just want you to put it into marketing, into ad spend. And I believe it's really going to help you. And again, that was another day that I cried because it was like, had I not followed through on this dream, this vision that God had given me, I would have never been on that person's radar for them to reach out to me and to tell me they want to give me £5,000 and no strings attached. And so that November, I did 33K. And by the end of 5 months, I had done 100K in sales. And it was like, it almost felt like I didn't even try. Like it just happened. And I know now, because at the time I was just like, oh my gosh, it's because I just focused on, you know, what God wanted me to do. And it literally was seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added onto you. And now in hindsight, I literally can pinpoint each of the things I did that opened up the heavenly realm. And I just allowed God's blessing to pour onto what I was doing. And so I'm trying to remember, how did we even get here? Oh, yes, that was it. How did I get to the point of being and doing? It was that journey. And because I trusted him and I stepped out in faith and did this thing that made no logical sense to me, but made all the sense to God, it now put me in a position where now I trust him even more. So now it's like, it's almost with knowing what I know and having that first-hand experience. It's one thing to hear somebody else's experience, but unless you step out in faith and have your own experience, then it is difficult for you to build that trust and then for you to step out and do. That was how I've gotten to this place where I feel like I'm doing. And I say I'm still on a journey because I don't even feel like I've seen the have yet. I feel like I'm on the cusp of the have. And it's just, yeah, it's an amazing journey, especially when you know that, the Father, God, the Father, like it's a journey where you're winning. The end result is you're winning. Whatever it is, you're going to win. So yeah, it's just amazing.
The biggest thing that I got from this, and just at the foundation of everything that you said, I would say 2 words. You just said it: trust and believing what God said about you. Like that was the foundation of it all. Like reading the word and believing what it says and just taking it as that. Like, this is what it says. This is true for me. This is what I believe God has shown me about myself. And I just want to move forward. And that is such a beautiful story and really helps show that idea of how to become. And I love that you're saying that you're still on a journey with this. It's not something that you arrive. And I always say it on the podcast that knowing who you are is never a destination. It's a journey. It's a continuous journey. And seeing how it's unfolded and the rewards that you've gotten for following the Lord and believing him at his word about you set the tone for everything. And if you would be willing, would you be able to share, like you said, that you were able to pinpoint the different things that you did that allowed for the Lord to really show up in an amazing way in your business? Like, what were some of those things that you ended up doing?
So the first thing was I was honest. I was honest about where I was. That you always hear people say, come to God as you are. But a lot of people don't want to come to God as they are. They want to come to God pretending that they are who the scriptures say that we should be. And they don't actually just admit, this is where I am right now. Like, I remember a season where I desired money, a G-Wagon and a walk-in wardrobe and a 5-bedroom house. And I desired it more than spending time with God. And I remember I used to pretend that wasn't the case. But when I was honest with him about that and I said, I want you to change my heart, so I do desire you more than anything, it was like he said, I can work with you now. And now when I wake up in the mornings, I'm so excited to just have an hour with him. Like, it's the kind of excitement you would get if you was a child and your parents said you're going to Disneyland. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to spend an hour with God. Like, that was never the case before, but I was honest about where I was. And I said to him, this is what I want. And he gave it to me. So that was the first thing, honesty. As one of the things that I did. Seed. I sowed seed. So he gave me the vision. And I remember I sold my car. And when I sold my car, I got quite a nice amount of money from it. And I had all these things that I was going to spend the money on and all these things I was going to pay off. And then I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give a majority of it. I'm going to put a majority of it into starting this charity, this vision that he's given me. So I sowed sacrificial seed. I fasted. I did 3-day fasts. I did 7-day fasts. I did 24-hour fasts. And I fasted in ways that I never did before. So when I used to fast, I was just starving myself. Let's just be real. But then I realized that when you're fasting, you're actually supposed to eat the word of God. The word of God is supposed to be your food. And so I began fasting in that way. So I'd fast and I'd line up all these sermons that I was going to listen to whilst I'm fasting and all these scriptures that I would want to read. And so that was one of the things I did. Again, obedience. I was obedient and I moved. A lot of people don't move. They feel like I'm just gonna wait until something happens. And then if it looks like all the chips are falling into place, then I'll know that this is the time to go. But I didn't do that. I just went with it. I drafted what the program was going to look like before I'd even found a single child or found a single sponsor or found a team. I just moved. And as I moved, God moved. So those are some of the things.
what I hear when I hear you say those different things is that you applied principles of the kingdom. And the way I want to say it is, yeah, you aligned yourself with the kingdom and you did what the Bible says. Yeah, I guess what the Bible says in regards to how kingdom citizens act and how they behave and just, yeah, I don't know, like that's just the kind of thing that comes to my mind. So really, I want to ask you this because on this podcast, so actually, let me even tell you this. Okay, I learned about you when I learned about the kingdom. I had no understanding of how God wanted to move on earth through us and that there are things that he wants to do. There's a culture, there's a way of living. I had not heard about that. I've been a believer for God knows how many years. I did a fast back in 2023 and fasted, like you said, like used the word a lot. And it was a different fast than what I've ever done previously. And through that fast, it introduced me to teachers like Miles Monroe and different people who started talking about the kingdom. And again, I've been on YouTube, never have heard of anybody talk about the kingdom. So when I was learning about this, I actually saw your interview and when you talked about purpose, and I said, oh, like she's talking from what I'm hearing, kingdom-minded principles. Like she's applying the word to her life and it's reaping fruit. So how does this idea of the kingdom, what does that mean to you? And then how does that impact the way that you show up and that you're actually able to see results? One of the reasons as to why I was so open to learning was I was like, I want to see things change in my life. I felt that the way Christianity had been, it just didn't feel alive. And I'm like, there's no way that all this scripture says all these things, but yet the result in my life is not matching until I learned about the kingdom. So what does that look like for you? What does that mean to you? And how has that impacted the way that you live?
So many ways, so many things. So, kingdom, the world that we live in now, I've realized that it's just completely opposite from the kingdom. And so I said something about earlier on what was logical to me or what made no sense to me was completely logical to God. And so I've realized that everything that I know is as a result of this world that we live in. But the kingdom of God operates completely differently. And I think it goes back to the Our Father. So what does kingdom mean to me? Kingdom is God's original plan. His original design for earth was to mirror the kingdom. So the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So God's desire is for earth to look like heaven. And I remember when I was reading Genesis, I believe that it's on day 2, he separates, day 2 or day 3, but he separates the waters on earth from the waters in heaven. And it says that the sky was the firmament in between the two. So the sky was separating the waters on earth from the waters in heaven. And I thought to myself, interesting. What happens when you look into water? If you stand above water and you're looking at water, you see your reflection. You see your reflection. So you see the reflection of what is above. And I just thought to myself, the waters in the sky is the same as the water that's in heaven, but God just separated the two. So that means that whatever I'm seeing here on earth, that is a reflection of what is above. And I just realized that this life that we are living here on earth, God's desire is for the earth to look like the kingdom of heaven. And I think the kingdom of heaven is God's original design before man's fall. So we as human beings, we had dominion. I don't even want to say had, because of what Jesus has done, everything has been restored. So we have dominion over every creature of the earth. We are made in God's image and his likeness, and God is a creator. So we are creators as well. And so kingdom for me means ensuring that, I guess, my role here on earth and in relation to the kingdom is using the dominion and the power that he's given me, the likeness of his image that he's given me, using that to impact the world so that it begins to look like the kingdom of heaven. That's my role. That's my role.
And I think that shows it beautifully and perfectly. And in understanding that, to me, when I hear it, it empowers me to really step into who I am. Like, it makes me bolder. It makes me want to show up, because I'm like, Lord, you want to do some things on this earth. Funny enough, when I listened to you, I was in between starting this podcast or not. And one of your interviews and you talking about these principles and just you sharing your story, you know, of what happened when you started your nonprofit and all the success you had in your business, it helped me to see at that time, because I think I had just finished the fast, that, oh my goodness, like, I am called to do things on this earth. God wants to partner with me. He wants to bring what he's doing in heaven here on earth. And he wants to use me to do that. And am I willing to step into that and partner with him? So I feel like as I'm listening to you, it makes you a big thinker and a big player in life. Like, when I think about you, when I see what you've created, I'm like, man, like, she just goes for it. You're bold because you know that there is someone backing you, because it is his desire to see what you're doing come to fruition. He wants it more than we want it.
Absolutely. And it's literally for us to take it. When I was reading Genesis, God presented the animals before Adam for him to name them. And it says that God watched to see what Adam would name them. And I said to myself, wow, so this means that God literally, he's created this garden. He's created the world. He's created this garden. He's created an environment that has every single thing that man needs, places him in the garden, and then he now presents before him the creatures, the animals, and he says to name them. And then whatever Adam named the creatures, that's what they were. And I just thought, okay, so if I'm gonna bring this into the context of my life, it means that God has given me everything I need, everything that I need. And then now he's also given me dominion, and he's putting things before me, situations, circumstances, opportunities. He's putting them in front of me and he's saying, name it. I've given you dominion, name it. And so it's for me to name it. Am I going to call this opportunity in front of me an opportunity, or am I going to call it a burden? Am I going to call it something I can't do, or am I going to call it something that I can do, something that, you know, I have dominion on and it's going to work in my favor? He's waiting to see what we're going to call it, knowing that he's given us everything that we need. And so that's the part that we need to play. And again, our daddy has given us everything we need. He is backing us. He wants us to win. So why would I then say, yeah, I don't think I can do this, or this isn't for me. This is bigger than me. That makes no sense.
Oh, I love that. Taking that story of Adam and being able to apply it, taking wisdom from it and being able to apply it to everyday circumstances. It just makes everything come alive and everything practical. One thing that I've learned about God in this journey is that He's very practical in some sense. Like he's not too mystical or you can't discover him, you can't know him. No, like he's a very practical God at the same time.
And I think that's one thing. And you spoke about, you felt like you weren't seeing the results of being a Christian. It didn't seem like things were happening. And it's because oftentimes we just live in the mystical side of things, the spiritual side of things. But there is a spiritual side of things and there is a physical side of things. And God doesn't neglect the physical, but he just makes it very clear that everything starts in the spiritual. And so that's part of the reason why as Christians, so sometimes we don't see action because, yeah, we might be in the word, but did you take what you learned from that word and apply it practically that day? Because what I used to do is I would read the word and I would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The revelation. Wow, God, you're magnificent. You're so intelligent. You're so wow. And I would be like, feel like I've done something because I've received revelation. But that is deceptive because if you're not actually practically doing anything with that knowledge, that understanding and the revelation you've received, then you're not going to see action. And going back to seed, when you put a seed in the ground, it needs things from the ground, right? That is what I refer to as a spiritual realm. So it needs nutrients from the soil. It also needs water. And if you look at Genesis, in the beginning, it said that that there wasn't rain at the time, but that God would cause mist to come up from the ground. So you have nutrients in the soil, you have mist coming from the ground, but once that plant emerges and it's now in the physical realm, it now requires sunlight. It now requires air. But just because it requires sunlight and air, does it mean it no longer needs the nutrients from the soil and the water? No. So you need spiritual things. You need to start in the spirit, but then you also need to do things in the physical if you want to see growth. And you don't neglect either, but you just understand where it starts. And so a lot of the times as Christians, we can be in the spirit, which is amazing, which is, mandatory. But if you're not going to do anything in the physical, then you haven't done it. You're not going to see things happen.
That's good. That's good, Dammy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm listening to this whole conversation and I'm just like, this is so helpful. This is going to set some people free for sure. It's going to help make things more practical and also see that we're not alone. One thing that has encouraged me through this conversation is I have related in so many ways to where you've been and then also where you're going and seeing that, okay, this is really a journey and a walk with the Lord, and becoming more just requires time and trust. And as I become more, I can do more. And then as I do more, I can have more. And I can know that there is a God backing me up and he wants me to win because he wants to win. So no, this was amazing, Dammy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You've been amazing. And thank you for what you're doing and the speed with which you're moving as well. Some people, you said that you started thinking about the podcast. Some people never go past thinking and they never actually do. So well done to you for doing.
Thank you. And one of the, why that happened is because I realized it was bigger than me. That was the main reason. And I said to myself, I don't want to stop what God wants to do on earth out of fear. It took me a while to get there, but that was the main reason. It was bigger than me. And where did that come from? A perspective. My mindset changed. And I do actually have a question for you. And I love to ask this to guests on the podcast. What is your version of luxury? What do you define as luxury?
Oh, gosh. So for me, luxury. And I think I've only really been experiencing this as of recently, but I've realized that luxury it's not something external, but it's internal. And I have the power to live in luxury. It's not a bag or a house or a car that makes me feel luxurious, but it's the other way around. I have the power to feel luxurious with my imagination in particular. God is showing me a lot about the power of imagination. You know, it says that we were made in his image, and image, you can't spell imagination without image. And so I'm realizing that we were created in God's image, in his imagination, and we were created in his likeness, and he's given us imagination. And so therefore, I create with my imagination, and I create luxury. So I wake up and I'm living in luxury because I created it with my imagination. I walk around my house, I look at my children, and I feel blessed. Even if the living room looks like madness because they've done a madness, that doesn't define luxury. I am living in luxury because of the blessing, because I've decided to choose that they are a blessing. They are a blessing to me. The noise they make is a blessing. The mess they make, I have the power. So that's what luxury is for me. It's the power of my imagination and me being the one to create that luxury. No one else determines it for me. I determine it.
And where can people connect with you? Because I'm sure people are like, I need to know who she is. Where can I find her? What does she have going on? Where can they connect with you?
Yes. So you can connect with me on socials. So on YouTube, a lot of the work that I do is focused around the health of our hair. And I look at hair from a very unique perspective. So I look at hair from a spiritual perspective, from a scientific perspective, and I also look at it from mindset, mentality, physical, and practical. And God is showing and teaching me so much about our hair. Our hair is, like when God calls it a crown of glory, there's layers to that. It's not just a crown of glory because of how it looks aesthetically, but it is a crown of glory because it is a visual depiction of what is going on internally. Our hair is a visual depiction of what is going on spiritually in a place that we cannot see. We can't see what's going on inside our bodies, but our hair tells us. If you're stressed, your hair will tell you, right? If there is sickness in your body, one of the common symptoms is your hair begins to fall out or begins to become thinner. Your hair will tell you. And then because we have such an attachment to our hair, when we see something like that, we begin to move, we act on it. And so I don't think it's coincidence that God has caused women especially, Black women especially, to have such a relationship, a connection to their hair. Like a Black woman can look in the mirror and see her hair, and because it's grown to a length that it's never grown before, she can cry physical tears. Her physical hair can cause an emotional, spiritual response. I don't think God created us in that way by coincidence. I believe that our hair is actually a health monitor. There's so many things that he's showing me about the hair. He speaks about hair in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Samson's hair. He's counted the numbers of hair on our head. Our hair is our crown of glory. And I believe that there is a renewal of the mind that's taking place, that he wants to take place in Black women, especially concerning our hair. Our hair has been oppressed. It's been suppressed. Anyway, I can't, let me not go into that because we'll be here for another 30 minutes. But God is really showing me something about the health of hair. And so that's why I say him even leading me into trichology at a time where I didn't really want to use it for what it's intended for. It wasn't coincidence, because it's led me to where I am right now, teaching women. Our hair follicle has receptors, so many different receptors. You hear the common ones like, oh, vitamin D and things such as that. But our hair actually has serotonin receptors. And serotonin is a chemical that the brain releases when we're happy. Why would our hair follicle need to have a serotonin receptor? Why would God create us in that way? Why would God tell us to fix our thoughts on whatever is lovely, whatever is true, whatever is noble? When we fix our thoughts on good things, we feel happy. It causes the brain to release chemicals such as serotonin, which our hair has a receptor for. And when we have enough serotonin, our hair grows healthily. But if we don't have enough, we'll begin to see an impact on our hair. Why would he do that? Why? There's a reason why. Our thoughts have a direct link to the health in our bodies, to the health of our cells. When we think good thoughts, our bodies produce high quality proteins. And when we think negative thoughts, our bodies produce cheap quality proteins, which equal to sickness in our bodies. And our hair has receptors for those as well. And then our hair will now respond according to what's going on internally. And you think that's coincidence. But yet, as Black women, we have been taught not to cherish and to love this hair that he's given us, but to hide it. But it's so funny because that's the industry that I was in. For years, I was selling hair extensions and wigs, and God has done like a 180, because I told you I closed down last year. And it's like, wow, if this was a news article, it would be ex-drug dealer turns rehab coach. Right? And I'm just like, God, I'm like, God, how can you show me all these things? And now I'm supposed to communicate these things, but I was the person that was dealing. But God will do that. God will do that. And I'm here for it. So you can find me on YouTube where I go deep into hair health, and you can find me as well on Instagram. So on Instagram, it's Dammy Saint Claire, and it's the same on YouTube, Dammy Saint Claire. So yes, I also have an academy. So I have a hair academy called Strand Salvation, and I literally coach women. I coach women on the health of their hair and how to overcome hair loss. And I also work with women one-to-one who, are experiencing hair loss and they want to see a transformation. So you can find me on socials, and you can also join my academy if hair health is something that you are interested in. But let me warn you, it's not just your hair that transforms. It is everything about you because of the way in which I teach about hair. So yeah, that's it.
Come on. We want all the transformation. I love it. Dammy, thank you so much. This was so much fun, and I learned a lot, and yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also view the full episode on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you on the next episode.